North Korea. In North Korea, being homeless isn't just dangerous, it's a crime so terrible that the second you're caught, you're a dead man walking. The North Koreans solved homelessness by making it a crime punishable by years of forced labor in a Kyohwaso camp, a place so cruel that most people never make it back. If you're caught without proper residence documentation, you're not classified as homeless. You're a criminal, and you might as well already be dead. And good luck trying not to get caught. North Korea controls where every citizen lives, works, and travels, and authorities constantly conduct regular sweeps across the country. Anyone caught sleeping rough is shipped straight to a labor camp where the conditions are so harsh that survival rates are purposefully kept secret. But even if you do somehow evade capture, winter temperatures can go as low as -20 degrees Celsius. Anyone without proper shelter faces almost certain death. Even the few street markets that might offer scraps of food are under constant surveillance, making survival basically impossible. North Korea hasn't eliminated homelessness, they eliminate the homeless. Libya. In Libya, being homeless means signing up for a life of kidnapping, torture, and forced labor. In 2011, Libya's government collapsed and the country split into two warring factions. Since then, it's become a major highway for traffickers who prey on vulnerable and homeless people. Armed groups patrol the streets looking for anyone without shelter, especially migrants. Once they find you, the process is simple: kidnapping, detention, and extortion. In August 2024, authorities dismantled a huge trafficking ring that was abusing and torturing hundreds of people. But this wasn't some underground operation. These groups run like businesses with organized prisons and carefully calculated ransom demands. If you're homeless in Libya, you're not just without shelter, you're a target. The competing governments mean there's no unified police force to protect you, no courts to appeal to, and no safe zones to hide in. You're vulnerable, and at any moment you can be swept off the street and thrown into a nightmare. Sudan. Sudan isn't dangerous for homeless people because of crime or the weather. It's dangerous because the entire country is an active war zone. In April 2023, fighting erupted between rival military factions and hasn't stopped since. 1/3 of Sudan's population has been forced to flee their homes. That's over 15 million people displaced in less than 2 years. The camps meant to shelter displaced families become targets themselves. Armed groups attack civilians along escape routes, and disease spreads through overcrowded settlements faster than medical aid can arrive. Horrific conditions kill people way before bullets do. Plus, their problem isn't the usual urban homelessness where disadvantaged people lose their apartments and sleep rough. Their issue is entire cities being leveled in 24 hours as weapons and bombings destroy neighborhoods. Hundreds of families go from housed and stable to sleeping in the dirt overnight, and they're left at the mercy of the armies constantly fighting for control. India. India can kill homeless people in hours, not years. During the June 24 heatwave, 200 homeless people died in New Delhi in just 9 days. That's one death every hour from heat exposure alone. Temperatures hit 45 degrees, far too hot to survive without shelter. The math is simple. If you're sleeping outside during an Indian summer, you have maybe 6 hours before a heat stroke becomes fatal. But the heat isn't the only threat. When large events involving rich and powerful visitors from across the world come to Indian cities, the government often decides to clean up the city, bulldozing slums and displacing families to create a cleaner, fake image. They remove the homeless and their temporary shelters just to make sure the city looks polished and nice. So not only does extreme heat kill you if you're outside, but the government pushes you away from cooling centers and medical care. India treats visible poverty as an image problem, so even if you manage to find shelter in a nice area, it's unlikely you'll be safe for long. Haiti. Haiti's homeless aren't just forced to sleep on the street, they're living in an active war zone where gangs control 60% of the capital. In October 2025, violence displaced 1.4 million people, but there are no refugee camps or government shelters to flee to. Every neighborhood is controlled by armed groups with different rules that change based on who wins this week's gunfight. Being homeless in Haiti means you're not just vulnerable to crime. You're a civilian in a conflict zone where the state has collapsed and heavily armed gangs fill the vacuum. Today's safe street becomes tomorrow's battlefield. There's nowhere to run that isn't controlled by someone with guns. The gangs aren't just in specific areas, they're expanding their territory constantly, which means even if you do somehow find temporary safety, it won't last. Plus, there's no functioning government to provide protection. Haiti's homeless are living inside a moving front line where survival depends on which gang controls your block that day. Qatar. In Qatar, the only way to survive homelessness is completely illegal. The law says anyone who is found begging for money or food faces up to 1 year in prison. You're forced to either starve on the street in silence or go to jail for asking for help, creating an impossible trap. Plus, to improve their image, Qatar often increases enforcement during religious holidays like Ramadan, leading to the mass arrest of hundreds of people. And there's extra punishment for foreign workers who find themselves on the street as well. After serving your sentence, you get deported and banned from returning. Qatar hasn't banned homelessness. They've banned the only way to survive, essentially forcing the homeless to clean themselves up. Yemen. In Yemen, homelessness is the default condition of survival. The country has been at war since 2014, and millions of people have been left without shelter with no end in sight. But what makes Yemen uniquely brutal is that any temporary shelter is constantly at risk of being destroyed by floods. Displacement camps get wiped out by seasonal rains, forcing people who are already homeless to flee again. The aid meant to help can't get through because of the war. Armed groups seize relief supplies and block humanitarian workers from reaching people. And even if aid workers can reach people, a lack of funding means they don't even have the supplies to help. Yemen's homeless face a triple threat. War destroys homes, floods destroy camps, and politics blocks aid. The result is permanent displacement where people move from destroyed shelter to destroyed shelter with no end. Being homeless in Yemen means accepting that you'll never have a stable shelter again, and knowing that the next disaster is always just around the corner. United Arab Emirates. The UAE has a special way of dealing with their homeless. Federal law sets 3 months in prison plus fines for begging, but what makes the UAE different is speed. During religious holidays, authorities arrest hundreds of people across all 7 emirates in coordinated sweeps. The UAE treats visible poverty as a threat to their image and responds with surveillance state efficiency. In a country built on tourism and international business, they believe that homeless people damage the brand and must be removed immediately. If you find yourself on the street, you'll be detained, fined, or removed from public spaces before tourists notice. The UAE has made the covering up of poverty an incredibly efficient process. If you're seen without shelter, it's only a matter of time before you're swept under the rug and hit with serious legal repercussions. Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia, homelessness carries a deportation death sentence for foreign workers. The law provides jail time and fines for begging, but the real threat comes after: permanent exile. For the millions of migrant workers in Saudi Arabia, getting caught begging doesn't just mean punishment. It means losing your right to exist in the country where you've built your life. The deportation happens after you serve your sentence, so you get jail time plus permanent banishment. Saudi enforcement intensifies during religious holidays with mass arrests. For foreign nationals, temporary homelessness becomes permanent displacement from the country. You're not just losing your home, you're losing your legal right to be in Saudi Arabia at all. The kingdom has weaponized immigration law against homelessness, making the consequences extend far beyond immediate shelter needs. Russia. In Russia, being homeless essentially means losing your legal right to existence. Their registration system ties your right to healthcare, benefits, and employment to your address. No address means no registration, and no registration means the state treats you like you don't exist. This isn't just about lacking shelter, it's about falling out of the official system entirely. Plus, horrific Russian winters add an immediate death threat with temperatures that kill in hours. You're left on the street to freeze, and you're permanently excluded from any form of shelter or aid. Without registration, you can't access services that might help you escape homelessness. Russia doesn't arrest homeless people like many other places. It simply erases them from official existence, making it nearly impossible to re-enter society even if you find temporary shelter. It traps you on the street, with no way back inside. Brazil. Brazil's homeless face danger from two directions: horrific street violence and state cleanup campaigns. In 2016, authorities forcibly removed homeless people from tourist areas before the Olympics, with reports of beatings and serious violence during the removals. The goal wasn't providing housing, it was hiding poverty from international cameras. And Brazil's homeless exist in high-violence environments where criminal groups and police can both be threats. You could be robbed for the few possessions you have, taken hostage and held for ransom, or attacked for fun. Fires regularly kill dozens of homeless people who are forced into unsafe informal shelters attempting to find warmth. But what makes Brazil so brutal is the periodic cleaning ahead of global events. The homeless aren't just vulnerable to all that violence and street crime. They're treated as visual pollution to be removed when the world is watching. United States. The United States hits homeless people with a legal and climate double punch. In June 2024, the Supreme Court ruled that cities can make sleeping outside illegal even when no shelter is available. At the same time, heat waves are killing homeless people at record rates. Studies show death rates among the homeless far exceed the general population during extreme weather events. The combination is uniquely American, making survival behaviors illegal while making those behaviors deadly. Police sweeps move people away from shade and water just as temperatures spike to lethal levels. The legal system punishes you for sleeping outside, but provides no alternatives. Climate change makes sleeping outside increasingly fatal. The U.S. has created a system that makes the symptoms of homelessness illegal while refusing to address the causes, creating a cycle where people are arrested for behaviors necessary for survival, but increasingly dangerous due to extreme weather.